Hello and welcome to another Tech Campus Coffee Live webinar. This is an opportunity for you to learn about career paths at Tech directly from professionals in your field.
We'll be speaking to technical representatives from a variety of fields at Tech, and they'll share why they enjoy what they do.
Participants also have a chance to directly ask speakers and recruiters questions and get a good understanding of why Tech is a great place to work, as well as where your strengths, talents, and learning opportunities lie.
Yeah, so like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a campus recruitment coordinator for the Coal Business Unit of Tech. So I've been here for 13 years in the recruitment space. So I've worked in all levels of recruitment. So I started off in sort of hourly high volume recruitment. So things like haul truck drivers, trades, moved into staff recruitment, and then also started doing co-op on the side of my plate, and then just really fell in love with the energy and the excitement of campus recruitment and the variety. There's so many different roles that we have. So I really sort of stuck into the campus side of things, and I've been really recruiting students for the past 10 years, or if not a little bit more. And yeah, to give you an idea about what that looks like for Tech, over the 13 years, I've hired well over 1,000 students for the Coal Business Unit, and that would probably result in at least 3,000 interviews I got under my belt just for students alone, not including my time in hourly and in staff. So I've done an interview or two. I've probably seen and heard it all. So if anyone has any questions, we're going to talk a little bit about that process, what that looks like, what you could expect if you were to be considered and you're moving through the recruitment process with us. So I'll try and offer as much insight as I possibly can, and certainly let you know what sort of opportunities we have coming down the line moving forward.
Great, thanks, Stacey. And Izzy, same question. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you end up at Tech.
Yeah, so I am a student at University of Waterloo studying geophysics. And here at Tech, I started my co-op at the beginning of January in the technical marketing team. You might be thinking, how does geophysics transfer to marketing? I was thinking the same thing in my interview with Stacey last December. So technical marketing is kind of a choose your own adventure, something different every day. So we work closely with everything from the plant processing to the customers that we sell our coal to. So part of my job is a lot of data entry, tracking. I do work with research geology as well, tracking some samples, making databases. I've learned a couple new softwares and programs, and I've had an opportunity to talk to just about everybody that holds different types of roles at Tech.
Perfect, thanks, Izzy. So it looks like we got a queue of hands up, which is great. I've got a bag full of questions I can draw from, but maybe Arslan, you've been patient. Yeah, feel free to unmute your mic and yeah, fire away.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for taking my question. So I'm a fourth-year mechanical engineering student at McGill, actively looking for co-op opportunities. I'm particularly interested in the McKinsey co-op opportunity. I have a few questions. The first one is more about working at Tech as a co-op student. So as a mechanical engineering co-op, I'd imagine there would be so much to do and learn working in different departments. For example, I'd be super interested to work in process maintenance, process and reliability engineers doing condition monitoring. I also want to work in mobile maintenance, supporting fleet engineers, developing predictive maintenance strategies. So would a co-op student who's on a 8 or 12-month term get to work in entirely different departments with different teams and experience like entirely different sides of the coal business unit? Or is a co-op student just placed with one particular department for the entirety of his or her work term?
Yeah, great question, Arslan. And thanks for speaking up. So yeah, certainly we have a variety of different roles for the mechanical engineering space, and that's across the different business units. But even within coal alone, we have 5 or 6 different areas you could work as a mechanical engineering student. But when you get hired, you usually stay in that same role. So we've just find that it's such a big adjustment to come on as a co-op, and we really feel like 8 months, even 12 months, you're really getting the swing of things. You're starting to feel like a member of the team. So we don't like to shift people between different departments, because then you get to basically how we adjust it is that you start on smaller projects when you're first starting the team and get to know the site, get to know the people, and we slowly expand your responsibility level, and you take on more in-depth projects, and you really get a bit more into the weeds, let's just say, while you're working there. So we just find that that's a better way to really get someone to have a really full understanding of the area they're working in, rather than 2-month stints here and there. So yeah, you would stay in the same team as when you come on.
That makes sense. I have another question.
Sure.
You mentioned Race 21, which you posted as Tech's major innovation-driven and efficiency program. Although I'm a mech engineering student, I have some systems engineering experience. 19th at school. I wanted to know if Tech involves engineering co-op students in any Race 21 related projects.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and we're definitely seeing a huge shift in a lot of our co-op requests. They're asking for people to have a little bit more interest in the technology side. Not all the roles, but a good chunk of them. And you're seeing them asking for, yeah, they're going to be involved in rollout of some race projects and some technology projects. So there's definitely a lot more involvement in race, and you'll see race projects in every discipline. They're basically they're rolling out more and more technology projects. So you'll get likely some exposure to that.
One last question. Thank you for bearing with me. I just wanted to, this is more of a general question. What would you recommend to a student who's looking for his first major, like 8 to 12 month co-op placement at Tech or anywhere else for that matter, aside from attending events such as these, putting yourself out there or making yourself more visible, I guess?
Yep, that's a great step for sure. The other thing that I guess a couple of words of advice, and there's lots of directions we could go with this depending what you're looking for, but one would be make sure you really include all your experience. I know sometimes if it's non-engineering, people are hesitant to put it on their resume, but I see any experience as good experience. So whether you worked in an office or you worked, in customer service, and in particular, if you've had any safety sensitive environments you've worked in, whether it was construction, those are all really great experiences to have on your resume to highlight your application. So that's something I look for, is someone who's well-rounded, can communicate with people, because our positions, you're not necessarily just sitting in an office working on reports all day. Like Izzy had talked about, you're dealing with all kinds of different disciplines, operators, engineers. So if you can display that in your resume, that you've got a well-rounded experience, you've been involved in groups on campus, that's all great experience to make sure you have on your resume, including your resume.
Well, thank you very much for answering all my questions.
Of course. Yeah, thank you.
Great, and I see we got a long queue of questions and hands up, which is great. So maybe what we'll do is we'll limit people to one core question, and we can always come back if we're running out of questions. But those are some great questions. And I'm going to apologize in advance if I butcher anybody's names. Anurag, your hand has been you've been patient. You're up next.
Yeah, hi, and thank you for letting me in. So I have this questions, which is like I'm into like the IT industry since the last 7 to 8 years. So I'm currently into the big data analytics. I do a lot of analytics. I write program. So I want my question is that how the IT or how my role will have a major play in tech, or my initial question is that is there any department, IT department into tech, or it's more into like mining, minerals, or something else like that?
Yeah, there's a couple different areas you can certainly come into. Maybe Masaki, you can fill any blanks I leave here, but from the operational standpoint, which is where I'm the most familiar, there's certainly some roles in data analytics. Like you can just imagine, we have a lot of data coming in. Like if you think about, say, on the mechanical side of things, on the maintenance side of things, you always remember this number, Masaki. I always forget. How many sensors are on our haul truck again?
It's over 400.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. I'm like, I'm gonna make something up, but so yeah, so those sensors are bringing in a ton of data, as you can imagine. So we're to have a lot of projects with respect to machine learning and data analytics in terms of really making sense of the data from, like, say, for example, on the maintenance side of things, it's being more proactive in our maintenance, understanding why breakdowns are happening, and doing a bit more of a root cause analysis. Those require a lot of analytics on data. So from the operational standpoint, there's tons of opportunity with our digital systems team. And then maybe for Race and Saki, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so I know last year alone, I think we ended up hiring like 40 plus data scientists, if I'm not mistaken, and that's still growing. And as people move up and whatnot, we'll need to replace people, and so data analytics is not going anywhere. If anything, it's only increasing in importance at Tech. So we gave the one example of 400 sensors on a haul truck, and we have fleets of these at each site, and they're collecting data every second, and that's just one part of our equipment. Think about all the other hundreds of pieces of equipment we've got collecting data, and then our processing plant. So the potential for data analytics impacting mining in particular is incredible when you compare it to other businesses, and that's what makes it exciting for people. And we'll do more sessions with our data scientists, perhaps in the fall, but in other campus coffee. And we have some recordings, and there's another recording that's going to go up specifically on programming big data and AI, which is going to fix the video a little bit. But once that's fixed, it'll be up, and you can sort of see that on our campus coffee website.
Awesome. Izzy, did you want to add anything to that? I don't know if you, in terms of exposure you've had in technical marketing. Not to put you on the spot.
I haven't really had that much, but I know there is loads of data. Like even myself on a given day, I have to enter like an hour's worth of data into some like databases for other people to look at and use. And I don't know, especially with IT, I definitely call them all the time. So there is a couple co-op students there that I reliably call and ask for help.
That's awesome. Thanks, Izzy. Yeah, I know you manage a lot of data, so I was like, I'm imagining you could see the benefits of what we could do with some more analytics and just managing that big data that we have coming in every day. It's yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to switch to questions typed in the chat just to mix it up a bit. Sergio just wants some general tips on for actual second interviews. That's interesting. I don't know if you got some specific tips for that.
Sure, yeah. I suspect they might be looking for a full-time position. So to talk you through, maybe there's a couple different processes. They're all fairly similar, but maybe I'll speak to what you could expect if you come through the recruitment process with us. So as a co-op student on the coal business unit, if you're working on an engineering role, likely it'd be either a quick pre-screen with someone from our team, and then you would go through probably a 45-minute interview with myself or one of the members of my campus team. And then we would make decisions based on that. But sometimes the process can take a while. So I always warn people, we get a lot of applications. And so working through them, sometimes it takes us some time. Plus, I sometimes get late requests from hiring managers. So sometimes I might have so many done, and then I had to go back and revisit some applications to look for a different skill set kind of thing. For full-time positions, what'll happen, we'll put out a posting. It potentially, like if it's an EIT role, we may get a few hundred applications. So just to give you an idea, not to scare you off, but just be prepared that the process sometimes does take a while because we have such a volume that comes through. And then what'll happen is that a recruiter will go through every single resume. So another little quick tip here would be make sure your resume is understandable for a recruiter or an HR person to look at, because they're the first line. They're the ones that are going to see it. So make it understandable. So great to mention technical projects, that sort of thing, but make it really clear on how you meet those skill requirements, because we might not always be the technical experts. So we would go through, we would scale down those resumes. So say if we get 100, likely I would go in there and I would bring it down to probably my top 10, and I would share that top 10 with the hiring manager. We go through, figure out maybe like a top 5 or 6 that we would do a quick pre-screen, like maybe a half-an-hour phone call with, to sort of chat about the role, give you a bit more detail, and then also from there find out a little more details about like what you're looking for, your skill sets, all that sort of thing. And then from there, narrow it down to the second interview, which I know the question had sort of highlighted, and that's going to be with a hiring manager. And lately it's been on Teams. In pre and post COVID, it'll be in person for those top 3. And then that would be with a hiring manager, potentially a team member from that team, and then a recruiter as well. And so we would go through that second interview process, and that would be a little bit lengthier, likely an hour to hour and a half. Pre-post COVID, we would do potentially a site tour along with that as well. If you're in the area, we would make sure you get a chance to look at the operations, if it's an operational type role. If not, it would be an office visit and maybe meet some of the team kind of thing as a potential from there. So that's sort of the general process. Obviously, everything has been on Teams since COVID, so that'll be the process moving forward until things open up a little bit more. But that would be a Teams interview then for both pre-screen and the second interview. It would be Teams with the hiring manager, team member, and yourself and a recruiter. Hope that answers the question.
Great. So Tanya is from TRU, and she has a question about, and she's computer science. I found that afterwards. So, so she's curious about the kinds of co-op roles that we would have at Teck.
Well, yeah, like I sort of alluded to at the beginning, we definitely have a mixed bag. So I got a little feedback. I'm just going to ask everyone to put them on mute just so I don't get the feedback. Okay. Yeah, so from the computer science side of things, yeah, we do have quite a variety. I'm actually just working on the posting to get it up for the September term. So we have everything from programming type of roles, data analytics, so more like a machine learning type roles. We have desktop support. We have more networking type roles that have been really popular of late too. We've got lots of networking work that we're doing at the operations. This is all computer science, computer engineering type roles. We also have, I'm trying to think of what else I have been working on, and some other ones that would be more supporting some of the maintenance projects, so like business improvement. So really deep diving into some of our data and just trying to find trends and that sort of thing. So working with our business improvement group. So there's quite a variety on the computer science, computer engineering. I'll likely have at least 10 to 12 roles in Cole alone that are going to be all in that digital systems space. So that's going to be almost like a fifth of my positions for September, and that's the same with last semester as well.
Perfect. I'm going to switch back to hands up. So Joseph, thanks for your patience. Feel free to unmute your mic and ask your question.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for taking my question.
Yeah.
My question is, so I study mining engineering, and my most recent internship roles have focused more on the investment and finance side of mining. And basically just the question about the kinds of roles again. Basically what I'm wondering is, does Teck ever have internships that would focus on this area, or is it more the kind of thing where they expect students to spend technical time on site and then over time transition to that sort of thing? Both are fine, but I'm wondering how Teck handles someone with those kinds of interests.
Yeah, that's a great question, Joseph. Yeah, we have a variety, but I would say if I were gonna, probably the most common from a mining engineering perspective would certainly be that sort of short range planning space. So really getting you boots on the ground, getting that feel for operations. And we just feel it's a really great way to introduce you to the mining world and understanding what the day-to-day looks like. So short range planning gets you out there, you're out in site at least every day. Now there could be some sort of budgeting and finance sort of projects within that. So I wouldn't say you wouldn't get exposure to it, but they tend to be boots on the ground, site sort of roles. And we just find it's a great way to, especially as a newer engineer or a co-op student, it's just a really great way to get an understanding of what happens day to day and starting to work with operations, working with some of the technologies that we're rolling out. I know a couple of the co-op students I hired last term in mining were going to be helping us roll out new apps for some of our frontline supervisors. And that's the sort of anticipation of that autonomous haul trucks rolling out to our operations as well. So I'm seeing some unique roles. So I guess I would never say never because I've learned to never do that to ourselves because they always seem to change every term. But yeah, the bulk of them tend to be in mid-range to short-range planning.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so Joseph, I don't know if you're familiar with Ashish Casey. He graduated last year from your program, and there's master's student as well, Jose Oback, and these two mining engineering students ended up after their work terms in the field. They ended up transitioning to Race 21 into business intelligence roles, where the role is quite different, and we're rapidly growing this area. So what does the future hold for mining engineering students in terms of business and technology? I think the sky's the limit. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, and there may be some direct co-op positions like that in the future. But right now we do have a number of mining engineering students in business intelligence roles, students full-time now. They're both actually hired full-time. So.
Yeah, and we're still waiting for some of the race positions. There might be some race mining engineers as well. So for co-op for the upcoming term, and those will be a little bit unique. So I say, normally for coal anyway, we would have those operational roles, but they are potentially looking at bringing on some mining engineering roles that would be kind of like they'd work with as subject matter experts in mining, but with the technology team. So really on the technology side as opposed to the operational side, but still having that understanding of mining engineering and what happens at a mine. So that operational experience won't be as key, but you'll be talking to likely mining engineers at site and how the technology is going to work for them and how they're going to roll it out. So there's been definitely a lot more variety, but there's been a lot more ask around the technology, I would say, than anywhere in the mining side of things.
Awesome. That sounds really cool. Thanks for answering.
Yeah, no worries.
Great. Paolo, yeah, you're up next. And if I mispronounce your name. Gamez is the last name.
That's right. Thank you for taking my question. So I know I just graduated in mining engineering at UBC, and I have a question about, so are you, for the co-ops, are you just hiring like students that are currently enrolled in a program, or also new graduates? Do you have like co-op positions for new graduates?
I would suggest, so for co-op, I like to see a student returning back to school. So they either have to be in a co-op program, or if you could take a break from a traditional program, or maybe in the master's side thing, but I want you to be returning back to school. I've made a couple of exceptions to the rule. We don't have a policy set in space, like saying no for sure, but for me, just the experience we've had over the years, it's really challenging to have a new graduate. Basically, we want to protect the co-op roles that we do have. They're really key to like building those talent pools for future, and we'd hate to take away those from the students that are seeking it. And also, because you qualify for EIT roles, maybe that's the direction you should be looking in. And also, truthfully, we've gotten burned in the past where we've hired a graduate that really wanted to get that co-op experience, but then they're also seeking work while they're working in a co-op, and then we've lost them through the process, and so that it comes back to bite us a little bit. So we've been really adamant to try and focus on those students and protect those co-op roles for co-op students, or like you say, someone who's taking a break from a traditional program and able to do 8 months, because most of our positions are 8 months to 12 months on average. There's very rare we'll have a 4-month opportunity on the co-op side.
And to build on that, we hire a lot of full-time people. I think we have plans. I don't know what the numbers are, but don't quote me on this, but it's got to be 1,000 plus, if I'm not mistaken, for this year. Like I imagine that in that mix, there's got to be a lot of EIT roles. We just don't know what they're going to be and when they're going to pop up. But it's not a matter of if we need EITs in all the engineering disciplines, computer science as well, and geologists. It's just a matter of when. We just have a lot of demand. And then just going back to Stacey's comment about the co-ops, I'm pretty adamant about trying to make sure we do hire students in co-op positions, because I want to protect the co-op positions. It's part of our responsibility to make sure that we have opportunities for all students in the future, because if you fill a a co-op role with a full-time person, what happens is that person does well is that co-op position disappears. I've seen it with other companies. I've seen it with in my previous role at UBC, and so anyways, for Teck, we want to make sure we have a large number of co-op positions, because there's a heck of a lot of co-op students out there who need that extra experience to help them when they graduate. All right, so I'm going to switch back to some of the written questions here. So Stacey, so this is from Fadil. He's a chemical process engineering co-op. Interested in the chemical process engineering co-op position, and just wondering about what the recruitment. When are we recruiting students, and what's the recruitment process look like?
Sure. Yeah. And I sort of spoke a little bit about the recruitment process, so I think maybe I might have answered some of Fadil's question earlier, but I guess with the one part that maybe is a little different is the COVID part of it. Like with COVID, have we been able to have the opportunity to work on site this year? And the answer is yes. So we have reduced our numbers as much as we possibly can, with still remaining full production here. And we've been really successful with that. So like Izzy had alluded to as well, she's working from home, and as am I. There's a lot of us that are working from home, but people who are key to the operational day-to-day have still been working on site. And what we've been done is pulled everyone that doesn't need to be there every single day and just kept it reduced numbers, so that, well, first, we don't have to share offices with anyone, so people have their own space, they can maintain physical distancing, but then also making sure there's just less people interacting at the operational side of things. But we still have been getting our students have been up there. They might maybe have a day at home and then maybe 3-4 days in the office, that sort of at the site. So there's been a change for sure, but we definitely have making sure that we get those operational type roles, make sure those students are still getting to site as much as they possibly can. And that's where the big learnings come from. Maybe Izzy, you could speak to that a bit, because I know you see lots of processing students as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, my roommate / now best friend, thanks to Teck Co-op, she's actually a processing engineering student. And so she goes to work almost every day, and a lot of her job is taking samples, being in the lab, doing other process engineering things. But she works from home once a week, like some weeks, but a lot of the time she's at the plant and she's in her own office, or she's, in the plant with like all the social distancing protocols, stuff like that. And I know specifically at Line Creek, they've implemented rapid testing now. So she gets COVID tested, I believe, every other day, which is awesome. My peace of mind is great so that I know that no COVID is in our house. But yeah, it's awesome. And I've gotten to get to go to site too. I used to go about once a week, but restrictions have kind of clamped down a little bit more recently, so I'm all from home now. But even when I was there, I was able to go with my roommate and help her take samples. I've got plant tours, things like that. So there definitely is still experiences for you to be able to go out if that's part of your role. And that's been super huge to me as well, because I was a little bit worried that I would just be stuck at home, not make any friends. But yeah, not the case whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's actually a great point, Izzy. And just in case no one's asked about this yet, that's something I always put I like to highlight, because I think it's really important for students to have that network of people. Because yeah, like a lot of people are moving across the country to come work at one of these operations, and okay, I'm gonna go move to the Rocky Mountains or wherever you're going, whichever location. And we, like you said, we hire a ton of students. So we usually bring on, like at Cole, at all of our operations, we bring multiples, but obviously Cole has the largest program for sure in terms of co-op, and we're bringing 50 to 60 students out a semester. And so what I do is I get everyone's permission to release their contact details, like their email, to the other students that are coming on board. And a month prior, I send out a big email with everyone's contact details, the site location, where everyone's going to be, so that you guys can start forming that network. And there's a Facebook site that all the students join. So all of a sudden you have, Izzy talked about her new best friend. She's got like 50 new best friends, basically, where they all at least get to know each other. I know it's definitely been harder with COVID, but we're pretty lucky in this area. COVID's been pretty under control. We've got lots of space here. We're living in the mountains. You can explore and keep socially distant and be able to socialize still in a safe manner. And that's been really nice for the students to be able to have those opportunities.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add to that? Yeah.
It's just amazing, like being outside. I don't know. This is my chance to like plug living in Sparwood and Fernie, but it's awesome because I've been able to go out and like mountain bike with my friends. We went hiking a few times. We had like an outdoor beach day, things like that. So it's been really nice. And, we kind of became friends through that list that Stacey sent out. We like, Facebook searched up people, found people with common interests, made group chats, stuff like that. So it's been awesome on that front.
Oh, that's great.
Perfect. I've got next question from Vineet. This is interesting. He's I guess, studying instrumentation and control engineering. He's got experience at a steel manufacturing company, and now pursuing a master's of management and supply chain management. And is wondering, are there any opportunities for someone like him at Teck?
Definitely. Yeah, you're hired.
Yeah,
you're
right.
hired, Bernita. I love your resume already.
Yeah.
No, it's there's definitely lots of opportunity. The one that's really piqued my interest is the instrumentation and control engineering. That's a particularly challenging area to recruit for. We've got lots of opportunities, and we sort of alluded to it when we talked about that innovation technology space. A lot of that comes down to instrumentation and control engineering and that electrical side of things. So there's lots happening in that space, and it's been historically really challenging to recruit for. So yeah, there are definitely opportunities. I sort of alluded to this a bit earlier, but sometimes we have our postings that may not be as straightforward. It might just say it may say instrumentation or control technician. It might be radio technician. There's a lot of different titles. So I guess I would suggest anyone who's looking for a job in mining, especially if you haven't worked in mining before, sometimes the titles aren't exactly what you expect them to be. We sort of joked with Izzy's role, like she's technical marketing. People are like, she works in business. We're like, no, she doesn't. She's not working marketing at all. Really, it's totally different. It's more like, on the end of like preparing our coal for sale for market, right? And that's but it can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. So I always tell people, keep an eye on the postings. We have new postings come up every single day. Set yourself up for job alerts if you're really keen on working for Teck, and highlight the areas that like, because it'll ping you then if something comes up with instrumentation or control engineering mentioned in it, or electrical, or supply chain. We also have roles in that space as well, whether it's with our HVC, with our coal, like Highland Valley Copper, or with our coal operations. So just set yourself up for job alerts with some key terms that it can ping you if something comes up on a posting, because it might not actually be called like an electrical engineer or a instrumentation technician, that sort of thing. We like to mix it up a little bit, keep you on your toes.
Perfect. All right. Maybe we'll try to get maybe one more question in before we switch to the trivia. I want to make sure somebody walks away with a prize. Gustavo, thanks for your patience. Yeah, feel free to unmute your mic and ask your question.
All right. Starters, thanks a lot for this presentation. I'm sure everyone here knows how a job search can be a little bit frustrating sometimes, so I really appreciate it. Now to my question. For some of the entry-level positions that you guys have now, for mineral processing, for example, are you looking for someone to start immediately, or are you looking for new grads that are going to graduate in the next couple of months? Is it an issue that I'm going to graduate in the next couple of months? Should I be applying now?
Yeah. So we're in May now, so you're probably going to be finishing up in August, say, for example. I would say, yeah, I would start my hunt a couple months in advance. I guess there's a bit of a combo. There's no straight answer. It's like my politician's answer for your questions, Gustavo. But
okay.
A lot of times we'll put a posting up and we need them yesterday. And that's not uncommon. Like maybe somebody got into promotion that we weren't expecting, or they've moved on and all of a sudden the postings come up when we need to fill it right away. We don't have like a scheduled time where we do our EIT recruitment. It's always usually a bit of a shuffling in the team, and all of a sudden it's resulted, hey, now we have an EIT role that's opened up. We don't do it just like certain times of the year. But I would suggest that lots of times, because our process can take a month, say, for example, by the time you go from an application to finish to actually getting to the interview, I would suggest a couple of months out prior to your graduation, start applying for those EIT roles. And people will be prepared. If they're putting an EIT role up in May, June, they're prepared that likely they might get someone who's going to be ready to start in September.
Fair enough. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. So we've got some of our generals up now. I'm looking to get our digital systems up over the next couple of days, as well as our geo, but you'll see some on the Teck website. So we'll put it on teck.com/careers as well. You'll see it likely posted at most of the universities across Canada, but if not, always refer back to our website, and we'll drive the applications even from your university right into our actual applicant tracking system here anyway. So I mean, I can speak about co-op. Obviously, I'm very passionate about the experience that the students get, and I can speak about it all day long. But of course, it means a lot more coming from the students. So here's just a couple of little quotes of students that have worked here, and we do like an evaluation with all our students as they leave. So after their 8-month, 12-month opportunity, we ask them for feedback on their role, and we also do an evaluation with their supervisors. But this is some of the comments that some of the students made at the end of their term about their experience they had with us. So we just figured we'd highlight a couple, because I think, yeah, it's, my job is to sell the role. So I guess sometimes people have a hard time believing from me, but it should mean something coming from the students. And not to put Izzy on the spot, but I'm sure she could certainly share a little bit about the kind of variety of experience that she's been able to get with Teck so far.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Like I was saying, I even got to go into the plant with my roommate to take some samples and stuff. I have a list that if COVID gets better of things that I want to do. But even, I guess, like one thing to say that's really cool is being a geophysics student in like a more marketing-y type role. I've been able to reach out to a lot of other geologists and geoscientists and kind of ask about what they're doing too. And everyone is more than happy to talk to you. So that's been really cool about that. And I mean, even in my role, technical marketing, I'm like in the plant taking samples, I'm in the office entering data. It's really cool, like all the different kinds of things that you can do. And a lot too, like the supervisors of co-op students, if you have like a particular passion or something that like correlates to any of the work that you're doing, they're really awesome about kind of making that into a project for you to do too. At least in my experience. Can't speak for everyone, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's super common, Izzy. I'm glad you brought that up, because yeah, that's certainly feedback I often hear, is that you'll see that our postings tend to be fairly general. And it's because lots of times they'll request a co-op today, and in 4 months from now, we have no idea what the priorities are going to be. They can change very quickly, and that's the beauty of mining, is that it's very fast-paced, it's very dynamic, and you'll see lots of changes. So we tend to go fairly general because we don't know exactly what projects we're going to have in place, or that we have a projects pile, that could literally be as long as your arm. And sometimes it depends on the student that comes in and where their interests are and where their specialties are, and we can sort of target sort of the experience they're going to get based on that as well. So I'm not going to say you're going to be able to dictate what you're going to do, but certainly we definitely give you a say. There's no shortage of work. You're never sitting around bored, that's for sure. And it certainly gives you a good variety of experience. So I think the most common, literally the common comment I hear in most of those evaluations when I go through them is, I can't believe how much responsibility I was given as a co-op with Teck, and that certainly has really rung through when you really look at all these evaluations, the type of work and projects they're getting to do. I sit through all the co-op evaluation, like they do presentations at the end of their terms, and just to see the type of money they're saving and projects they get to work on, it always blows my mind. So yeah, it's pretty neat to see what the value that they add to the business.
For sure. All right, we're going to switch back to the Q&A, but one last thing before we do is we have a feedback survey that we would really appreciate you filling out. Because at the end of the day, we want to be able to provide value to students like yourselves. We want to be able to provide guest speakers and content that is relevant and of interest to you and students like yourselves. So that feedback survey is going to enable us to be able to do that. And so that link should be posted shortly. If not, we'll spam you all anyways after the session. So here's the link. Great.
Don't worry. Yeah. It will spam you.
Anyway, so we'll have an opportunity to fill it out later. So and then if you have to jump, we apologize for not answering everybody's question, within the hour. But there's been some great questions, and we'll switch back to the questions. And I see, and I'm going to apologize for mispronouncing the name here, but Anurada. Yeah, you're up next. Feel free to unmute your mic and ask your question if you're still around or available to ask.
Hi, thank you so much for organizing the campus coffee session today. I'm graduating from a master's in chemical engineering this May, and I was just wondering, what roles or do chemical engineers do in Teck? What are the scope of work for chemical engineers in Teck? That would be my first question.
Sure. Yeah, there's a few different areas you could work in. And maybe what I'll do, how about I talk about coal, Misaki, maybe you could talk about trail. I know you've spoken to that, but on the coal side of things, you end up working more often than not in the processing plants. So it tends to be a bit more processing heavy, I guess. And you work with a team of chemical engineers and working, Izzy can speak to this maybe too, but really looking at inefficiencies within the plant. Where can we make improvements with respect to safety, with respect to production? Right now, obviously looking at ways that we can automate some of the processes to reduce water consumption, power consumption, and make us a little bit more sustainable as an operation. So there's a multitude of projects that would be working, but yeah, day to day, you'll be working in that processing plant that's processing our coal to really simplify that process. And I'm certainly not going to claim to be a technical expert, but our processing plants, basically it processes the coal in terms of, we don't have any big chemical reactions in there in the coal processing. It's more cleaning the coal, separating it from the rock, and then sending it on trains as clean coal kind of thing. Maybe Izzy, you can speak more intelligently about that part of it than I can.
Yeah, I mean, my roommate's a chemical engineer, and so hearing about her days too, she pretty much spends the majority of her day in the plant, sampling, testing. She gets opportunities too to go into the lab, and right now we're working on part of coal processing involves magnetite, and so we're losing some magnetite at a certain part in the plant. So a lot of her job is trying to troubleshoot that, streamline that process. And part of that is researching what other things have done in the office. She's, running her own tests, trying to figure that out, talking to operators, lab techs, everybody that's ever come in contact with magnetite pretty much. But yeah, it's awesome. And aside from that too, she has lots of opportunities to do, I guess, more typical engineering things like engineering drawings. I'm not an engineering student, so I don't really know that side of things as much. But yeah, she loves her job as a chemical engineering student in the process department. So if that's your thing, then definitely consider.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we talk. We're not just we're a diversified resource
Mhm.
company, and one of the things we don't talk maybe enough about is our trail operations and trail. And so, in a nutshell, that we have not just one smelter there, but I believe it's like the equivalent of 5 smelters on one property. And so, to put this in perspective, there are so many opportunities for a chemical engineer there that the rotational training program that they've set up there for chemical engineers is the manager has 27 different plants that she can send and rotate. And each plant has different roles for these chemical engineers. And so, from what I've heard from the EITs there who are really happy there is that they could learn a new process for their entire life and not run out of things to learn at our trail smelter, if that puts it in perspective.
Yeah, it's pretty
Awesome.
interesting facility.
That's very interesting. Thank you so much for answering. I also have another question. This is related to the broad aspect, right? Like I was looking at the job postings that were posted for chemical engineers, and it is sort of broad. So what are some of the skills that you look for in, say, a process EIT when you're hiring a process EIT? And yeah, that's my second question.
Okay, yeah. And I'll speak fairly broadly about this, I guess, in terms of, I sort of alluded to it earlier. It's really highlighting any experience you have, if it's not in mining or in particular in processing, and just highlighting any safety sensitive experience you might have had in the past, because that definitely just helps you sort of adjust to a position such as ours, where you're working in a very structured, safety sensitive environment. So it's making sure you have an understanding of that side of things. And in the experience, it's good experience. So whether you have it in processing plants in the past, or if this is going to be brand new, it's just highlighting experiences that you've had where you've made improvements. I always tell people that's a really nice thing to put on your resume, is you talk about your jobs, that what impact did you have on those jobs. We love to see that, where you say, I saved this much in this project, or this much in this particular job, and just showing some of those achievements and highlighting those to make it really easy for someone to ask you about them is always a really nice thing to have on a resume.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great. Let me see here who's next on my list here. And I apologize, it's not in complete order here, but Yu Yang, yeah, thanks for your patience.
Oh, thank you for having me here. Can you guys hear me fine?
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, my name is Yu Yan. I'm a third-year mechanical engineering student at the University of Alberta. And I just finished an 8-month work term with ACO Pipelines. So it's kind of like different industry. So everything is new to me. So, thank you for having this coffee break. And jumping to my question is, I'm interested in applying for the position of a mechanical engineering co-op on your website, also at the university co-op office website. So the question would be, what are some field responsibilities for mechanical engineering co-op? I know it varies from team to team. My previous role are more like site visits rather than participating in the construction phase of the project. So yeah, that's my question.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, there is quite a variety, and that's why you'll see the posting sort of touches a little bit of everything. You'll be like, well, am I going to do all this on my work term? And it's because we have such a variety of roles. So I'm waiting for some of my requests to get approved right now. But from what I can see, we're going to have some that are going to be within mobile maintenance side of things. So working with some of the fleets of haul trucks, dozers, loaders, graders, really working on, there will be inevitably some reliability type maintenance projects that'll be tossed in there. So looking at a proactive approach to maintenance, which is our ideal, and we're looking at ways that you can improve some of our maintenance. So I sort of alluded to it earlier. We have a centralized group that really does a deep dive into some of those failure analysis and looking at different ways that we're experiencing failures. And then we do some more work at the site level as well, in terms of deep diving into where our failures are coming from, that sort of thing. So that's on the mobile maintenance side. Same, I guess not to overgeneralize it, but on the processing side, similar. You're working with equipment in the processing plant as opposed to the mobile maintenance, so more stationary equipment, but looking at conveyors, belts, pumps, that sort of thing, but on the maintenance side of things. So again, looking for inefficiencies, ways that we can improve the process. If we're having failures, is why we're having failures. You become an expert in all kinds of filters. It seems to be the trend on the maintenance side of the plant. But there's no shortage of work, and I guess I speak to that in that you'll definitely oversee likely some maintenance projects that'll be happening, whether it's a plant shutdown. That's in either discipline, and and looking at ways that you can improve. We also have other maintenance roles that are coming out this term from the coal business unit I'm speaking to again, with our water quality management group. And that's a really interesting group that's really working with our water treatment facilities that we have on site. And then we also have another group that is looking at a new way to treat water. And I sort of alluded to it earlier, but the saturated rock fill, it's called. And we have maintenance engineers and mechanical engineers that are co-ops that are working within those areas and looking at, again, a more stationary equipment with a treatment plant, and then also working with some of the pumps and that sort of thing that we are using for our saturated rock fill. So some interesting projects, but inevitably you'll get some project management experience, likely some reliability engineering type projects, in addition to that day-to-day maintenance, working on the ground with tradespeople, communicating with heavy-duty mechanics and electricians on the floor. So, I know that's quite a broad scope, but there's definitely a few varieties. So I often ask people when I talk to them, especially on the maintenance side, because there's such a variety of roles, I'll usually speak a little bit about each role and be like, so which one's really speaking to you? What are you most interested in? Are you looking at more mobile maintenance versus plant maintenance? And then we usually sort of go down a road then in an interview process anyway.
All right, Stacey, we got a
Thank you,
ton of
Stacey.
we got a ton of questions in the queue here. I don't know if we're going to be able to get through them all, but we'll do
No,
our best.
I'm worried. I got to be a little more concise.
Yeah, no worries. So next question's from Crystal. And so she's interested to hear more about the alignment of sustainability within the company and how like a master's of science, a new grad, could transition into this area. She's got a background in geophysics in the oil and gas industry.
Oh, well, Izzy, you could speak to her a lot. Hey, we got lots of info. So yeah, geophysics, we've definitely hired in a few different areas. So like Izzy would be one example, working with our technical marketing group. We've also had some people work within our business improvement group with geophysics, and correct me if I'm wrong, Izzy, but I know from the geophysics side and the even physics engineering side of things, also our operational excellence group actually have hired some physics engineers in as well, and really looking at deep diving in some data and really looking for, I guess, a different perspective on how to see that data and how we can make improvements. Like that's what our operational excellence group does all the time, is working with all the different disciplines and having a little bit of understanding of the finance, but really understanding the data a little bit differently than maybe a mechanical engineer or a mining engineer would look at the data. So it offers that different perspective. So we have hired geophysics and physics engineers within a few different areas where it's a little bit more on the analytical side of things. Izzy, do you want to speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, I can't say much. I haven't really done any geophysics ever before, even in school. But it is really interesting too. In technical marketing specifically, everybody on my team has a geoscience background except for my direct supervisor, who has a process engineering background. But it's definitely really valuable having that geoscience insight to the data analysis, because the way that the business unit looks at things is definitely different than how we look at it. So a lot of email chains are like kind of completely different perspectives on those things. So having those geophysics skills are really important in transferring that like kind of way of thinking to other areas as well.
Yeah, that's great. That answers the question.
Yeah, perfect. So next up, Angarag has this is gonna be a more challenging question, I think, for us, but we'll give it a go. So he's a master science student studying digital transformation / evolution of labor, and using XR technology, which I believe is extended reality technology, to enhance human capital and implementation of such technology. Does Race 21 have projects related to this? And yeah, so I figured it's a tough one, but I think so off the based on, to the best of my knowledge, we're not quite there yet, but we're looking. And I do know, like, so I literally was in conversations yesterday about this, about using similar technologies for our even our retention and onboarding, and so we are looking at it, but it's definitely an interesting area. And if any division is going to be very interested in it, that would be our Race 21 division. So, the direction is for them is using everything in our means to optimize and do things more effectively. And so, I would imagine for human capital, same thing.
Yeah, we've been looking at, I mean, it's not really speaking to this directly, but there's been lots of really interesting projects coming out of RACE that we've just been trying them and just to see if it works and how it's making improvements. And so we've been open to some really interesting projects with like using robots on the maintenance side of things. Like there's been lots of really cool things implemented. So I'm sure it's just a matter of time on different areas that we're going to look at, but we've mainly been focusing a lot on I mean, we're moving all the disciplines, but I see a lot of work in the maintenance space, a lot of work in the mining space, and I think it's just going to continue to evolve, working in different areas and looking at different projects.
Perfect. Dhruv has a question. Hang on. It's all right. For electrical engineering technologist co-op hang on. I want to know, does Teck hire electrical engineering technologist co-op students or only engineering students?
Thus far, we haven't had a whole lot on the technology. I'm just trying to remember if I've had one or not. I've been sort of asking from a summer student perspective. So we do have a summer student program, and I've been really pushing hard to get some of those control technologists, electrical technologists to be hired in for like get more technical, I guess, with our summer student program than we've had in the past, and to look for those roles because I know a lot of the programs are 2 to 3 years. You have a summer off, and that's when your opportunity to get work. So so I have been pushing for that, and I'm hoping if the upcoming summer we'll see a little bit more of those opportunities. But as it stands now, we haven't had a ton. I think I've hired a couple over the years, but I suspect that's going to be a growing field because we're seeing a real challenge to recruit full time in that field.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, the good news is we hire full time.
Yeah. So, yay.
Yeah. All right. Eric, thanks for your patience. Yeah, feel free to unmute and ask your question.
Hello. So I am a geology student. I had just finished my third year, and I'm looking to get a position related to geology within Teck. And I was just wondering, more a question for Stacey, what kind of things, if a geologist application rolls across your desk, what kind of like software or other skills do you see on that makes you say, we really want this kid on your team?
Yeah. Field experience, definitely huge. You're going to get in the field a lot with a geo role with us. Certainly anything with GIS, ArcGIS experience there. Our environmental group uses it a lot, but our geo group has been using it as well. So that's nice to have. If you've got any experience with our geology team works really close with our mining engineering team. So if you've got any experience with any sort of planning, like 3D software, we use MineSight here for our planning tools for the mining engineering, and our geos inevitably get used to that. And then obviously survey tools, if you have some experience and have survey school under your belt, that's something I definitely look at just to have, because it's more often than not, that's where you're going to end up supporting is the survey team and working really closely with them. So yeah, so that's a couple of quick tidbits, I guess, Eric.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Perfect. Vineet Chaudhary.
Just quickly, I want to jump in and say,
yeah.
Sorry. I just want to say I have to jump to another meeting now, but if you guys have any more questions relating to like specifically being a co-op student or anything, living in the Valley, stuff like that, I see one question in here already that I'll answer in the chat. Yeah, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll answer there.
Yeah, and awesome. Great point. Thank you, Isabel, Izzy, for participating in this, and also for all you students. Next week, we're going to have 4 co-op students available in a panel to talk about their co-op experience in different disciplines. So if you're curious to hear from different students in different roles, and yeah, that's a great opportunity. Same time, same day, just next week. Thanks, Izzy.
Thanks, Izzy.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll stick around for a couple more minutes. Hey, Masaki, are you good for a few more minutes?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a hard stop at least 1:30, but hopefully 1:20 we can power through this. But all right, yeah, go ahead, Vineet. Sorry about
that. Yeah, so thank you so much for organizing this wonderful session today. As Stacey has already answered my question, right now I'm pursuing my master's in supply chain and will be completing that by the end of this year. So I was just going through the website and I was just wondering that, like, can you please give an overview on what type of supply chain job opportunities I might get, or something which can like merge my previous engineering, instrumentation engineering knowledge and supply chain into that, like what type of roles I can look forward to?
Yeah, and that's full time, you right, Vineet?
Yes, I will be looking from December onwards. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to think. We have our supply chain group. So we have a materials management group that we have with Cole, and they are and yeah, sorry. Yeah, with supply chain group that that works within our shared service group, so they support the operation. So purchasing, materials management, that sort of thing. There's some opportunities there. And then I know at our Highland Valley Copper Group, they also have a supply chain team as well. So they might be listed as buyer, purchaser, supply chain. I'm not sure the job titles, but those will be the ones you want to sort of get yourself set up for job alerts anyway, so that you understand, yeah, what's coming up and what sort
Okay.
of skill sets they're looking for.
And the only way to apply for those opportunities will be through the website, if I'm not wrong.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So start keeping an eye out a couple of months before you graduate, and I would start applying at that point.
Okay, so I can expect around September, maybe this year, or
Yes.
maybe November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
not sure when they'll come up. They come up all the
okay.
time, but I would say keep an eye on the
Yeah.
website for sure.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're welcome.
All right, Gloria is a UBC Master's of Mining Engineering student, has 8 years of mining experience. Is this a disadvantage for co-op or like being overqualified?
No, not at all. No, I've hired lots of master's students that have come from a strong mining background. They went back to do their master's, and they've had several years. And yeah, it's a great opportunity for us to bring someone on that can hit the ground running pretty easily. So yeah, certainly no, I'm not afraid to hire someone who's got a strong career behind them already.
Yeah, and good examples would be Jose Oback from last year's, or actually graduated this year, sorry. He's been hired full-time from your program, and Varun Reddy 2 years ago was hired full-time from your same program. So yeah, lots of opportunities. All right, I've got some more hands up here. Aaron, you're next.
Hey, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. All right. First of all, thank you. I know everyone says this, but thank you for the event. Also, thank you for the coffee. I'm a big coffee guy, so I'm excited for that. Honestly,
well done.
Thank you.
You're gonna love it.
Thank you.
It is
Oh
really,
yeah,
really good.
I'm really excited. Yeah. I guess I'll just speed up as much as I can because we don't have much time. But I guess now I'm a third year mechanical student at the U of A. I guess one of my concerns is that even though I consider myself a pretty outgoing person in the community, I do a lot of project experience and extracurriculars and also do a little research on the side with the prof. My main concern is that I don't really have any co-op experience, even though I'm in the co-op program. So if I were to get a position with you guys, it will be like my first work experience, that kind of thing. So my question will be that even though like everything I do in school is kind of cool and all, what can I do within my application, or I guess for you guys to for me to stand out, even though I don't have much experience in the industry, that kind of thing.
That's totally fine. It's not, we've hired lots of people that are coming in pretty green, especially the fact that you're in your third year, Aaron, is definitely a huge leg up, just because it's a great term to really transition into a great co-op that you're going back for just your last year, potentially getting you into an opportunity where you could be considered for future opportunities. So it's a really great timing for a co-op, truthfully. Yeah, I mean, overall, it's the attitude. So again, you could highlight in your cover letter that you attended campus coffee, you won our trivia. Highlight all that stuff in your cover letter. But it's just a little bit of memory. You know, it's all part of it too. Is the networking side, that you're showing up for these events and you're showing you're genuinely interested in the role, and that's a big part of it. Is really showing that genuine interest in tech, in the positions with tech, and that speaks volumes for sure.
All right, for sure. I'll definitely include all the positives I gained in this coffee hour. So yeah, perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, Paulo, I know you have another question.
I do. So, well, it's kind of related to the last question. But for example, if I'm looking for a permanent, full-time position, and during my degree, I didn't really have like any experience on co-ops other than the technical projects from the school and the courses. I know that's like a disadvantage, but like what qualifications are you normally looking for engineering training positions normally?
Yeah. So similar to what I said, it's I know it's hard. It's been a tough couple of years, and we see that in a lot of resumes. There's not been as many jobs, there's not as many opportunities for people to get experience, which has been really challenging for everyone. So we get it, we totally understand. But just highlighting any experience you have gotten, even like from lab experience, if you talk a little bit about the safety exposure you've had and understanding the different policies, any improvements you made along the way. So highlighting a couple of things like that in your resume to show that that vested interest and that sort of drive in certain areas. Even if you have a particular area of maintenance that you're interested in, then bringing that up, that always just shows that extra effort, I guess, from your application, especially when you don't have any experience to sort of highlight.
Does lab technician experience counts?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and lots of times I've seen people who have lab work that maybe they did a bit about coal, or they learned a little bit about some of the other materials that we mine here. And so having that experience, but even just any lab experience is great experience, because it really gets you an understanding of that structure and that sort of safety sensitive environment. So yeah, definitely highlight any projects you've worked on, any lab experience you might have, research.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, next up is it Kerr Mayan?
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
This is a very great session. So I am from UBC. I just completed my second year, and the question I had, I think, has already been answered, because I have very little technical experience, considering that I just finished my second year. But from my classes, I've seen that Teck has some special relationship with UBC, because some of the processing flow sheets that we have studied in class are mainly from Teck. Some of your technology is from Teck. So I think from that and some of the things that you just talked about, like you said that you can highlight lab experiences, I think you've already answered my question. But if there's anything you can add, then I'll appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, Teck, UBC is right in our backyard, so we do have a great relationship with the university, and so yeah, you'll definitely see lots of Teck influence around campus, and our name put on lots of projects. We work hand in hand with a lot of different universities, but I know UBC in particular has lots of projects. So if you can get your hands on a project that's got Teck's name on it, that's definitely gives you a little bit more insight into the business itself, for sure.
So what are your employment prospects for somebody like me, just finished second year and looking for an entry-level engineering job?
They do come up on it. I will say we often lean towards a little bit more senior years. Sometimes it's because of the length of term that people are available. A lot of times, a lot of universities, third years, I have the longer term they're available for. But also we like to get a few technical courses under your belt. It's because you do work in a very technical environment. You'll get exposure to lots of different projects that, having a couple of years under your belt, it just helps to have that third year, because you get those a little bit more specific courses. So that tends to be the case, but I don't want to discourage you altogether. We have hired second years in the past a lot, but I'd say the bulk of our students have been at least third years in the past.
All right,
so if you don't work at Teck your first term, just get some experience that would be relatable, and you can have that on your resume and strengthen your application that much more.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm gonna try to lump some questions together here. So Gideon and Jisley have similar questions, and it's about how important is having experience. So some of our new grad positions, they require co-op experience. And then what should they highlight in their application? I know you talked about this a little bit.
Yeah. So sorry. The question would be that what do they do if they don't have experience? Sorry.
Well, it's more how important is having experience
for an EIT role.
Yeah, and then what can they highlight, I guess?
Yeah.
Or which?
Yeah. So yeah, I sort of talked about it a little bit, but any sort of projects you've managed, even if you were like a team lead, I hadn't talked about this, but group projects, if you're a team lead in a project, you led a team, you led a group, all those things are great, because you're going to inevitably get things like project management within your roles here. So highlighting some of that, some of the research you've been involved in, or any sort of projects that you've taken initiative that might be relatable to what we do here, it's also nice to highlight in your resume. We certainly look at co-ops for our like we use co-op as a company to build talent pools for future opportunities. So obviously you definitely get a bit of a leg up having a co-op experience with us and having a positive experience, but we don't fill all our EIT roles with just co-op. So it's usually around half of our EIT roles through the year would be filled with former co-ops, and others we would go external for. But just to give you a bit of indication, that's how we weigh how important co-op is for us. But certainly any experience you have, even if it's outside of mining, highlight that, improvements you made, how you impacted the team, what sort of projects you had to work on. Make it really understandable for someone who may be not familiar with the industry that you maybe had exposure to as well. Keeping in mind it might be myself or another recruiter looking at your resume.
All right, I think the last hand up is Tanya. Maybe we'll try to squeeze this in before the half, but let's do a hard stop at 30. So
Okay.
Tanya, thanks for your patience.
Thank you so much, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
We can hear you, Tanya.
Oh, great. Thank you. I thought that I unmuted the mic, but I wasn't sure. I wanted to thank you as well for doing this session. I've been waiting for one for a while now, because I wasn't eligible for the summer co-op session yet. I am eligible for the fall one, and I just, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see any IT co-op positions on the website.
That's right, not yet. It's coming. So I'm just actually working on those postings now, because I usually try and lump all my digital systems positions in one posting, because otherwise there'll be 10 extra positions that'll get posted up. So I usually try and put all the digital system in one, and I'll highlight quick, like 1 or 2 lines on each position, and they change every single term. So I'm just trying to clarify some details for some of my roles, and it should be up before the end of this week on the website. So you'll see. Yeah. For sure. So just keep an eye out for this week. I was hoping by today, but it might end up being tomorrow where I get it up. But yeah, it'll be up on the website in short order for sure. And then there's also desktop support, which is a separate posting again. And that's sort of more on the IT side of desktop support, like really supporting our internal clients on their IT issues.
Actually, desktop support is one of the co-op roles that I am most interested in.
Oh, perfect.
I have one of my friends. He is a co-op at Teck as well. His name is Geophysics Singh.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
he's at Calgary. Yeah, Geophysics. Great.
Yeah, and he did mention Stacey's name, and yeah, he was like, she's great, and just talk to her during the coffee session and all that jazz, But just because while doing school, I did like I'm doing a customer service role. So I thought that desk support would be a perfect co-op for me, because it would be customer service and then using my IT skills as well.
Yeah, that's definitely something in that role in particular we look for. We look for someone who's got that customer service, that communication skills. You can sort of figure out what the problem is from someone who might not understand it and be able to translate into that technical side. So huge asset in that role for sure.
Thank you so much. I feel more confident after the session for applying for the job. You will definitely see me in the pool.
Perfect. I'll keep an eye out for you, Tanya. Thank you.
Great. Well, just I know we're at the 1:30 Pacific time, and yeah, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for your questions. I can't believe it. We actually got through all of the questions in the chat, which is a miracle. And I knew there was the one student from up for the one question for Izzy, and unfortunately, we didn't get around to that. But she did mention she's going to answer it in the chat. But next week we're going to have 4 co-op students. So I encourage you to ask that type of question, and they'll each answer that, and you'll learn a ton about. But yeah, our students do have a huge impact at our organization. In some cases, saving $1 million plus for the company, which is pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll be myself or one of our colleagues from the recruitment team will be there as well. So certainly we'll be there to answer any other questions that might not have been covered if you had some recruitment specific ones too.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Yeah.